Something that really stuck out to me in your book was just how accessible Donald Trump was those 20 years ago. Because when the contestants got famously fired in the boardroom, they would go back to the hotel, but they had to stay there. And Trump would often visit those sequestered failed contestants. He would answer the phone to the press. He would be able to fill in a slot if a talk show host was not available. So, can you talk about how, his accessibility back then and how it translated to his presidency now?
Trump's number one obsession, the thing that drives him, the thing that motivates him, the thing that inspires him, is attention. Performing for the cameras, getting press. It doesn't matter if it's a good headline or a bad headline. Trump believes that all press is good press. And so, as the host of The Apprentice, he was so happy and so enamored by all this attention that he got that he started to think that the show was real life for him. And he would develop all these bonds and relationships with the contestants and use the contestants as spokespeople for his brand. They would talk about the Trump organization. The Apprentice winners would go off and talk about how great it was working with Donald Trump. And even though their job was to be running one of Trump's businesses, their real job was actually promoting Donald Trump in the press. And so we used every element of the show, every aspect of The Apprentice as publicity for him to feed his business. And also he ended up making a significant amount of money from the show, $213 million over hosting for 14 seasons.
You watched The Apprentice, obviously rewatched it. You even rewatched many supercuts with Donald Trump. I mean, he famously coined the phrase, "you're fired." What are the biggest parallels that you saw rewatching The Apprentice from 20 years ago that you saw really translate into his presidency?
Well, certainly I think the most obvious way that he used The Apprentice was by hiring Omarosa, who was often a villain on the show, came back for 3 seasons, and then he brought her in as an aide in his White House and then ended up firing her there too. But when Donald Trump and I were sitting together watching scenes from The Apprentice, I noticed that he was very, very happy. He was pleased. He was excited. I think I describe in the book that it was like him watching the opening credits was like him, a child watching Star Wars again for the first time. There was a real magic and a sense of this is what he wanted to do with his life. And he loves the show. The reason he gave me so many interviews is that he really loved talking about the show. We started talking together in 2021 for this book and continued on through 2023. So we spent a lot of time talking over many years about what the show meant to him. And clearly it's a very important part of what he thinks his legacy is.
I think that's really interesting because there was a juxtaposition when he was talking with you about The Apprentice versus when he was talking about with you about being the president. You would think if someone's the president, the leader of the free world, that would be their shining joy, the thing that they would always go back to, the thing that they would always talk about, be proud of it. He was way more proud, it seemed, of The Apprentice. I mean, the way you described it, I think at one point was maybe a high school football player reliving the glory days from back in the day, and he was very happy. I think he asked you to send him the link that you found on YouTube of a supercut of him firing people and some of the best moments in the boardroom. Yeah. And then when he would talk about his presidency, it was defensive and holding grudges and having an enemy list. So can you talk about that juxtaposition?
For Trump, the reason he loved The Apprentice was that he played the boss of the boardroom and he had ultimate control over everything that was happening. But when he took this reality TV mirage and moved it to the White House, he completely lost control. Trump isn't actually interested in governing. He's not interested in sort of the semantics of what's happening in DC or legislation. He's not interested in actually leading the country. One of the arguments in my book is that Donald Trump is a reality star, and we all have gone down the rabbit hole with him. The title of the book is Apprentice in Wonderland because there's a very Alice in Wonderland quality where we're all now living in this alternate reality where a reality star is trying to govern us. And in my time with him, it became very clear to me that he loved being host of The Apprentice. And as for being president, that wasn't as exciting for him.